Well, folks, I have to say, Friday was a landmark day. This was the best day for the Trump campaign. For me as a voter of 2024, I've been pretty unimpressed with a lot of what Trump has actually done on the campaign. I felt like he was kind of phoning it in. I don't think he had the same energy for a lot of 2024. Up until, of course, the fateful day in which he was almost killed. Came within an inch or two of death. And so I do think since then there's been a change in him, although he's not the same Trump from 2016. Obviously, he doesn't have he seems much more introspective. But I think he's grown wiser. I think that that was very much a wake-up call for him. Oftentimes, if you come within an inch of having your head taken off, it will spur you to question and reflect on your life choices. But we hadn't really seen that manifest in anything concrete, policy-wise. But this announcement with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. yesterday, I think, was very much informed by his experience almost being assassinated. We've heard Trump talk on and off throughout this campaign about releasing the remaining classified files pertaining to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, which was something he promised to do back in 2016 and then failed to deliver on during his first term because I believe, I'm paraphrasing here, he said the truth was just so awful and so disastrous he couldn't possibly reveal that to the American people because it would destroy our country. That was what Trump said. So essentially he admitted, yes, our government killed Kennedy, but that truth is so, would be so disastrous it would break all confidence in the deep state. I have to protect the deep state, and so I can't release that. And so at that point, back during Trump's first term, I said, oh, okay, so he's just made a deal with them. He's completely compromised. He's trying to, he thinks that he can work with these people. That's not the case. They will destroy him. Well, I guess after they tried to kill him, Trump finally snapped out of that. And he said, you know what? Screw it. There's no reasoning with these people. I'm going to have to go scorched earth. So, unfortunately, he already lost one chance to reveal all these documents. He could have revealed everything about all the government secrets when he was president, because the president of the United States has unilateral authority to declassify documents, because all classified documents are done so using executive authority. It's a delegated power from the president. But Trump apparently is going to do one more than that. He's bringing in RFK Jr. to lead a presidential commission on assassinations, which, of course, you would assume would include not only the JFK assassination. Actually, I shouldn't say assume. He said this for a fact. It will also be investigating his own assassination, which I think is important. It should not just be forgotten. I was afraid still after this that Trump would just sort of let it go. He would let it, like water off a duck's back. He would move on from his assassination attempt. And, if he became president again, essentially pretend like it never happened. That's not what needs to happen. We need to know every last detail. We need to know what failures led to that near-miss assassination. And I think that the truth, whatever it ends up being, will end up making certain people look pretty bad. And so that's not all that RFK Jr. is being brought in to work on. Honestly, I don't think that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would have endorsed Donald J. Trump just because Trump says he's going to release the JFK documents. Like I said, Trump ran on that in 2016, and I don't believe he was endorsed by RFK Jr. then. No, what really has seemed to animate RFK over the last few years, at least in the time that I've been aware of him in my lifetime, and obviously he's been around and alive much longer than I am, but in my lifetime, what I associate him with is the public health stuff. It's the food safety stuff. It's, environmental factors. The A word, are we allowed to say it on YouTube? Autism. And so Trump made a pretty strong commitment at the rally in Phoenix yesterday. Or was it in Phoenix or somewhere in Arizona? He made a strong commitment to make RFK Jr. the point man on trying to get to the bottom of discovering why chronic diseases in America, why we are an anomaly compared to the rest of the world, why we have such high rates of certain illnesses, why we have such high rates of obesity. And it's not just, a matter of, you eat too many potato chips. It's like, yeah, some people do. Some people don't eat any potato chips. Some people just eat normal meals. They don't overeat necessarily. There are people who do. But it seems like in America, and the statistics seem to bear this out, even if you eat a reasonable diet, even if you don't sit on the couch all day, sleeping, odds are you're going to be a bit heavier, a bit less healthy, and a bit more diseased than someone who lives a comparable lifestyle living in, Denmark. When I was gone for the past couple of weeks, I was over in Southern Europe. And I expected this, but it was still remarkable to see in person the absolute lack of fat people. They didn't exist over there. Now, I'm not saying that there's no such thing as a fat European, or there's no such thing as a fat African, or there's no such thing as a fat Asian person. But what I am saying, in my 2 weeks over there, the only fat people that I saw were other American tourists. And I don't think that's necessarily because people over there starve themselves and eat like birds. In fact, when I was eating restaurants and stuff, I was quite impressed with the portion sizes, I have to be honest. Especially for the price, it seemed pretty fair. I was expecting, food, just because, the Europors, I think of everything over there being expensive and stupid because of, regulations and crap. But that wasn't the case. People over there, they eat a lot of butter in their sauces with their meats. They eat a lot of pasta if you're in a place like Italy. They eat a lot of other grains. They eat a lot of bread. All these things that we're told are so bad for us. Oh, you can't eat carbs. Oh, you can't eat fat. This is why we silly Americans are morbidly obese. Yet over there, that didn't seem to be a problem. And it got me thinking. So it's an interesting coincidence that this RFK stuff, this public health discussion is happening this week after I got back. Well, it's still fresh in my mind. It really got me thinking while I was there. There's got to be some fundamental difference about our food in America. And we know, if you just look at the list of ingredients on the foods that we have here in America, our food is different. There's a bunch of stuff that we have that they simply don't use in other parts of the world. Now, I'm not saying that every little weird ingredient that you can't pronounce on the nutrition label is poison. I'm not saying that every single one of them are killing us. I'm saying that it seems like there's a pretty good chance that there's something. When we look at these long lists of ingredients, of chemicals that we don't know how to pronounce, I've got a feeling that there might be something in there, some things, some percentage, let's say maybe 30% of the things in there, that might not be totally safe and might be making us very unhealthy. Because it seems to me, just eating a normal amount of food should not make you a diabetic by the time that you're 40. Just simply being born shouldn't give you a 1 in 30 chance of being autistic. And there's a whole litany of other conditions that 50 years ago simply nobody had ever heard of, that simply weren't factors. I mean, yes, diabetes existed, but it was a rare thing. I mean, how do you think for thousands of years of human history, diabetics could have survived. Now we have such a massive portion of our population that is kept alive, by insulin or whatever. If I remember correctly, I think this would have been probably in high school that this would have come up in history class. I think the year was like 1890 something when they first successfully injected insulin from, I think it was a sheep, into a human diabetic to try and regulate their blood sugar. It may have also been a cow, but it was a cow or a sheep. I'm pretty certain. It was only like in the 1890s. So we had no way of treating these conditions even until very recently. Now they're everywhere. Everybody has them. I mean, hell, my grandfather's diabetic, and he's never even been fat. Certainly not fat now. But it's just one of those things. It's like, well, if you live long enough, eventually you'll end up with diabetes in America. That's just that's just normal. Not even an unhealthy person, never had any major health problem throughout his life. Just simply existing, you end up with one of these diseases. It's just normal. If it wasn't diabetes, it would have been something else. But then all these chronic diseases that we have lead to other problems, and it leads to healthcare costs just sort of spiraling out of control. Like as an example, I'll use my granddad again, as a diabetic. He had to have open heart surgery last year, very expensive, I think it was paid for by the VA. So luckily he didn't have to incur that cost, but our federal government had to incur that cost. And it was open heart surgery related, I forget the exact thing, but it was related to the diabetes. It caused some kind of like heart blockage. So think about all the complications to someone who has diabetes from the time that they're a child, because they grew up eating our crappy food. And they end up with, what is it? Is that type 2 diabetes they call it now? Used to be called, I remember, gosh, who was the top of this? Used to be called adult onset diabetes. Did you know that? Because type 2 diabetes, as we call it now, was something that only showed up in adults, because it was a matter of, lifestyle rather than genetics that caused it. It was a matter, I think that's the difference between the two, is that, one is from stuff that you ingest, and but the other, and the other's like you're born with it. But they had to change it to type 2 because too many children were being diagnosed with adult onset diabetes. And so they're literally having to change the names of diseases to account for how unhealthy we are as a country. And it's not something I talk about on this channel because there's just not a lot of information. There's not a lot of news about it. And so I don't normally bring it up. I don't have much to say about it. It's just sad. It's scary, something that I worry about. Like, I don't want to have any of these chronic diseases. But I also don't know what it is that's necessarily going to cause them. I don't know why we all have them. I don't know if the solution is that I should just, move to a country where people are statistically healthier or something and just do what everybody else does. I don't know. Don't really want to do that. I like just eating normal food. I don't even know what foods necessarily. See, this is a problem. I don't necessarily know what things cause this. I mean, I know, if I eat a bunch and I make myself into a fat ass, good chances I'm going to end up diabetic, or good chances I'm going to end up with heart disease, or good chances I'm going to have some other problems. But it's like, I'm not morbidly obese. Nobody in my family is morbidly obese. I don't eat very much to begin with. Yet I know there's a good chance, very good chance, eventually in my life, if I'm alive long enough, I'm going to end up with these long lists of health problems. I mean, every old person you talk to, they're on like 10 different medications. They've got all these issues. And yes, it's true that, of course, as people get older, they're going to have more health problems because, you eventually die of one of them. And that's how we have lifespans in the world. And, we should be thankful because the average life expectancy has gone up, since, I guess, 1945 or wherever you want to draw the line. life expectancy has been rising, although I think for the first time it went down, the average life expectancy in America recently, but still, they're pretty much higher than they've ever been. But just think, if we didn't have all these higher incidence rates of all these diseases, how much higher could our life expectancy be? Because there are people who die prematurely, who die at younger ages because of these conditions. And so that brings down the average life expectancy for all of us. Would our average life expectancy be like in the mid-80s? I don't know. So anyway, to me, this is such a major issue that just never gets any discussion. Like this, I don't know how many people this would appeal to, but I think this could be a really winning issue for Trump if he pushes it hard, because nobody other than RFK ever really discussed this kind of stuff, so I think he could be a really powerful surrogate, if Trump is serious about this. If he which I think somebody like Trump, I think Trump would care about an issue like this. I think that it would bother him. I think that intuitively, it's the kind of thing that clicks with him. It's like, oh yeah, that doesn't make sense. There's got to be some kind of reason, and we need to get to the bottom of that. And it shouldn't be a political issue. Like everyone should feel the same about it. Like this is something that shouldn't. This is not a wedge issue. In other words, this is not the kind of thing, you talk about this a lot. You're gonna own the libs. The libs are gonna be like, no, I love my Roundup Ready soybeans. No, I want my Kraft macaroni and cheese to have all the additives. I love the yellow dye number 4. No, I think any person in America, because everybody is touched by, these healthcare issues. This really is. This is kind of the crux of the healthcare issue. Healthcare would not be, the problem that it is in America if we weren't so damn unhealthy. Because guess what? If we were healthier people, we wouldn't have to spend as much on healthcare. Insurance premiums wouldn't be high to begin with. Insurance would be cheap, and therefore people would be able to afford to have insurance for when they needed it for actual major health problems. Things that can't be avoided, like a broken arm or something. And so all of these diseases that are results of our environment or what we ingest, at the very least, we need to know what's causing them so that people can avoid them. Because as it is right now, it's not very clear. Right now, the only solution that I've seen is just, cut everything out of your diet and only put back in things that are good. You buy everything organic or whatever. Buy everything, that has no additives in it. Make things from scratch. It's like, one, that's difficult. 2, it's expensive. And so if you're a poor person, you're not going to buy the organic, grass-fed ribeye. You're going to buy the normal skirt steak off of the white foam with a generic label. And then you're gonna tenderize it. You're gonna cook it in a pan, maybe throw it in some fajitas, and that'll be your beef that you get in. You're not buying the high-end, expensive steaks, except for once in a blue moon. And when you do, you probably aren't going to buy the organic one because it's that much more expensive. And even if it says organic or whatever on it, how do we know that what those cows are being fed or how they're being raised is any healthier for us? Because as we know, you can't just exactly trust the science or something, trust the experts. You certainly can't trust labels on your food because there's too much we don't know. This research has to be done actively all the time. And what could be more important to research than the health of our food? So anyway, with that said, I will see you folks back here in the next one.